Good afternoon, I'm Adam Seguin.
And I'm Eryk Trickett, and welcome to today's edition of This Week in Niagara.
Today we'll be discussing one of the biggest killers on the road, drinking and driving. We'll be talking to a police sergeant in the Niagara Regional Police's traffic division.
We'll also be taking a look at how people in the community can get involved in preventing drinking and driving through Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
You know, there are many services and businesses available to help prevent drinking and driving, and one of them is WeDrive. We'll be talking to one of their directors in a little bit.
Finally, Kevin Brooks will be joining us later on. Kevin is a motivational speaker who lost his ability to walk after a drinking and driving accident.
But first, Jenna Rovinelli is going to let us know about some of the facts about drinking and driving.
Drinking and driving is one of Ontario's most significant road safety issues. Over the past decade, more than 2,000 lives have been lost, and over 50,000 people have been injured because of drinking and driving collisions. Drunk driving accounts for almost 25% of all fatalities on Ontario's roads, and that's just in Ontario. In 2009 alone, over 1,000 people were killed Canada-wide because of impaired driving accidents. Drinking and driving has a financial impact as well, costing society at least $3 billion annually. You are now up to speed. Let's send it back to Eryk and Adam.
Thanks, Jenna. Drinking and driving is one of the biggest killers on the road, and it's something that's totally preventable.
That's right, Eryk. There are so many ways to avoid drinking and driving. You could take a taxi or maybe catch the last bus home.
I mean, you could find a friend who will let you sleep on their couch or bring a designated driver.
Or you could even have someone else drive your car home for you.
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Using WeDrive, they are a business in which someone actually comes to the bar, club, or party at which you're drinking and drives you and your car home for a fee.
Really? I didn't even know that existed. Wow.
Well, it does, and right now we have Jason Vale, director at WeDrive, on the line. When was WeDrive started?
We opened 6 years ago on December 1st, 2006.
Okay, so why exactly was it started?
It was started because there was a need in the community. The service is tending to pop up in communities across the country and around the world, and we recognized the lack of service in the Niagara region, and so we decided that we would come back to the Niagara region and open the service.
So on your average, let's say Friday night, how many calls do you get?
We would take home between 150 and 200 people on an average Friday night.
Now, what would you say makes your service more desirable than taxi cabs?
I think mainly it's the comfort and quality of your own vehicle. Number one, we all drive our vehicle for a reason, because we like it. We drive it out of necessity for the most part, but most people enjoy their own vehicle. Getting into your own vehicle and having somebody drive it for you is a little alien at first, but you get used to your own comfort and the ability to just get home safe in that comfort at the end of the night.
So how does your pricing compare to taxis?
On average, most of our pricing is what would be the equivalent of 1.5 times a cab. So if you're taking a cab out and taking a cab home, being truly responsible, then we're more affordable than a two-way cab ride.
Once again, we are talking to Jason Vale from WeDrive. Do you ever run into major problems with customers?
Not at all. Not at all. We in the 6 years we've been doing it, we've had one problem with a customer. The majority of our clientele are very good to us. They love us. They're all repeat customers, and we have great working relationship with everybody that we've come in contact with.
Now I'm wondering, how do drivers return after drop-offs?
It's a very good question, and it's quite frequently asked, is the difference between us and, say, a cab is that we work in teams of two. So there's two drivers that come out to the client's location. The first driver drives the client and their car. The second car follows the client to pick the first driver up.
Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to say about the service?
The only thing is that a lot of people don't recognize that you can call us at the spur of a moment with 20 minutes notice. That you don't have to pre-book our service. It's something you can call up at the last minute, so that if you don't enjoy the evening that you're having, then you don't have to worry about our service. you get home on your own. But if you're enjoying yourself, then you can have that extra drink.
Thanks, Jason. Once again, that was Jason Vale, director at WeDrive. You can contact them at 905-932-5539. So, Eryk, what do you think about this program?
Honestly, I think that it's just a great service because, first of all, like, it drives your own car home. So you don't have to worry the next morning, where was I? Where did I leave my car? You get home safe. That's the big thing, too. And the fact that he mentioned at the very end that you can call them at any point of the night, I think that's a great feature as well. Now that we've mentioned one way to avoid drinking and driving, we sent Jen Zanstra into the halls of Niagara College to speak with students to see what they do when they've been drinking.
By having a friend who's sober with you at all times.
I don't drink.
I take a cab.
Taxi.
I don't drink.
I walk everywhere.
I don't have my license, so that's not a problem. Stay over wherever you are.
We'll either plan it ahead, get a cab, or a friend to come pick us up.
I take a DD with me.
Call a friend. Call your mom.
I'm Jen Zanstra, walking around Niagara College asking students how they can avoid drinking and driving.
But obviously you have to have an escape route, so to speak. You have to have another ride home. Either that or wait it out, because it's not acceptable.
I don't drink at all. I don't drive, ever.
Spend lots of money on cab rides home.
I don't drink.
I don't drive when I go out.
Always plan ahead. If you're going to be drinking, have a plan to get home.
Don't bring your keys with you.
You get on a bus.
Getting a cab, getting a bus, getting one of these guys to pick me up.
I call my mother. These are just some of the ways that you can avoid drinking and driving, so make sure you always have a backup plan. Now back to Eryk and Adam in the studio.
Well, it sounds like a lot of students at the college make sure they have a safe way home when they've been drinking.
Yeah, and it's really great to hear that they truly understand the dangers of drinking and driving.
Definitely. People who realize it's the wrong thing to do at a younger age are less likely to resort to it the rest of their lives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, not only for safety reasons, but for the legal reasons as well.
And did you know in 2009, the Ontario government introduced new regulations for enforcing drunk driving?
Yeah, now some people get confused as to how much alcohol you're allowed to have in your system and still drive. A lot of people think that anything below 0.08 blood alcohol concentration is acceptable, but under these new rules, it isn't.
There is now a warning range between 0.05 and 0.08. If you get caught with a BAC in this range, you will be punished. If you are 21 or under, you cannot have any alcohol in your system no matter what license you have. When it comes down to it, it's better to not drive when you've had anything to drink at all.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's always a chance that you're above the limit without even knowing it, so caution is the best option.
When we come back, we'll be taking a look at the ride programs in the region on This Week in Niagara on 90.1 FM, The Heat.
Stop by Seaway Mall located in Welland for everything from pet supplies to fashion to athletics. With over 120 stores, Seaway is the best shopping destination in the region. Check out Seaway Mall on Facebook and Twitter for great deals and events. Located at 800 Niagara Street in Welland, Seaway Mall is the place to be.
I'm Amanda Kyle, and make sure you join me tomorrow for your music gallery on the Man in Black, Mr. Johnny Cash. This talented man has wrote over 1,000 songs, has been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and has won many awards.
You can run on for a long.
I'll be playing my favorite songs and some of the classics. That's tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. only on Niagara's New Rock 90.1 FM, The Heat.
We got married in a fever.
Welcome back to This Week in Niagara on 90.1 FM The Heat. I'm Eryk Trickett.
And I'm Adam Seguin. Today we're talking about drinking and driving.
Coming up later in the show, we'll be speaking with Kevin Brooks, a motivational speaker who lost his ability to walk in a drinking and driving accident.
But first, Detective Sergeant Darren Forbes joins us over the phone to give us some details about drinking and driving. Now, what are the NRP exactly doing to prevent drinking and driving in the Niagara region?
First of all, we're a partnership with what's called the Niagara Road Safety Committee, which is partners with Niagara Public Health, CAA, EMS, OPP, just to name a few of the partnerships that are there. So we meet regularly on road safety concerns. We work with groups like Mad Canada. We're active with the high schools. They do an annual sort of countermeasures program at the high school level, and of course internally we do ride enforcement throughout the entire year. Last week we kicked off our Festive Ride campaign, which runs through the whole entire festive season. So those are just some of the things that we're doing, proactively to counter drinking and driving. And so through Niagara through the Niagara Road Safety Committee, that's more of an educational program, and that's where we try to get the word out to the public. That's where you see your advertisement campaigns, the Think and Drive campaign, just reminding people not to drink and drive and take alternate modes of transportation, stay the night, take a cab, take the bus, use public transit, whatever the case may be, anything but drinking and driving.
The Festive Ride program is underway now. How did the program start?
Well, historically, the RIDE program which was something that actually, I think, developed during the festive season when people were more apt to be going to social parties, gatherings, Christmas parties, whatever the case may be, where there be alcohol and drinking involved. And from there, it just sort of expanded just to reduce impaired driving everywhere, all the time. It's specifically dealing with drinking and driving.
We are talking to Detective Sergeant Darren Forbes of the Niagara Regional Police. Now, in your mind, do you find more people are drinking and driving during the holiday season?
That's very difficult to say, because you'd have to know who's drinking and driving all the time year-round. And the premise behind it is people are more likely to be going to events where alcohol is served, and that's the premise behind why we'd be out more during the festive season. Are people drinking more? That's very difficult to say, but that's the idea behind it, is that we expect people to be doing more socializing, more functions, so we're out there reminding people not to, as a deterrent, to think before they get behind the wheel. But that's not to say it's not happening any other time of the year. That's why we do the RIDE program year-round.
How has the Festive Ride program gone so far?
In terms of success, we were very successful in. We charged quite a number of people, but on another note, we look at that it's sort of alarming, because when we start arresting 12 people for impaired driving offense over a period of night, that's very, very high. And that sends a message that maybe people aren't getting the idea, and maybe more people are drinking and driving. It's very difficult to just gauge on one night.
Thank you for joining us today, Detective Forbes. Once again, that was Detective Sergeant Darren Forbes of the Niagara Regional Police. And I have to stress this point, it was just said. Yes, it's successful. They're stopping a lot of people, but that still means that there are a lot of people that are going out there drinking and driving.
No, I know, and it's crazy, the numbers. And I have some stats here from 2011. During the festive season, here's the RIDE program stats. 5,000 motorists are stopped. 27 drivers had their license suspended for at least 3 days, and 12 drivers were charged with impaired driving, which means their licenses were suspended for 30 days and their cars were impounded.
Drinking and driving affects so many people. It's better to have those who choose to drink and drive off the road.
Oh yeah, and there's many organizations that try to prevent impaired driving, and Mothers Against Driving is one of the most well-known ones.
That's right. MAD has over 100 chapters and more than 7,000 volunteers all across Canada. Their mission statement is to stop impaired driving and support victims of this violent crime.
That's right, and joining us on today's show is Steve Way of the St. Catharines chapter of MAD Canada. Hey Steve, how did you get involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving?
We found out after being here for about 8 months that there was no chapter down here. There hadn't been one for, I guess, about 2 years. So we actually approached MAD's head office in Oakville and said, do you want someone to help out? And they said absolutely. So we applied, and we became chapter leaders about 6 to 8 months later. It's quite a process. You have to go through some screening, police checks, all this other stuff. And then we got involved with Allstate. We both work with Allstate. Has been partnered with MAD for 20-some odd years. So we headed up the Red Ribbon campaign in Niagara and St. Catharines, and it's starting to take hold now as we start to learn a little bit more.
Okay, now why did you decide to get involved with MAD?
I've always been a big proponent of not drinking and driving. The message, I'm in my late 40s, so the message has changed a lot over the last 30 years. I haven't personally been touched by anyone that's, been involved with an accident with alcohol related, but I know people that have, and I know how devastating it is to the families, and I knew they needed help, and it was something we felt that we should do. If they didn't have anybody down here, we thought, well, why not us?
So what does MAD do specifically for the Niagara region?
We've been involved so far with the Red Ribbon Campaign, which raises money for MAD and awareness of drunk driving. We do school presentations for anywhere from grade school right up to high school. Obviously, two different presentations. But even at the 5 and 6 level, just letting kids understand, and it's toned down to a certain extent. And we have a lady that goes around and does the presentation with it's very interactive with the kids, right up to the high school. And again, it's, letting them know what the numbers are, letting them know what the consequences are. And the one in the high school is quite a bit more graphic. And we've actually also headed up the health fair at Brock University. So we're there with our impaired driving goggles, lots of brochures and handouts on the ramifications, what to do, call a buddy, take a cab. And that message that everybody sort of sees out there, which is choose your ride, which has been a really successful campaign, which is the taxi cab, ambulance, hearse. So there's been that campaign as well. And we actually had that at the Brock Health Fair last year.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking to Steve Way from the St. Catharines chapter of MAD Canada. Now, Steve, does MAD have any events planned in the Niagara region for 2013?
We have nothing yet planned. We haven't even started with our 2013 planning. I know we're doing the Brock Health Fair again. We're actually combining an event. We're just not sure when it's going to launch. It's something that Allstate in the U.S. and Allstate in Canada has been launching the last 3 years, which is against distracted driving. So we're actually going to pair the two, and the distracted driving of it is obviously the main concern is texting and talking on the phone, now that it's illegal. And combining that with a MAD Canada message. So there will be an event at a couple of the high schools and perhaps at Brock University for that.
One last thing, how can people here in the region get involved with MAD?
They can go right to the website. It doesn't need to be specifically to MAD. It can be, to Niagara Region. MAD.ca has every chapter listed all across Canada. And if it is specific to the Niagara Region and they want to volunteer, they can contact myself or they can contact Nicole.
Thank you, Steve. That was Steve Way of the St. Catharines chapter of MAD Canada. He mentioned Nicole, that being his wife, Nicole Madden, who happens to be the head of the Niagara Falls chapter of MAD.
See, what I liked about that is we've talked to the police officer about enforcement for drunk driving, but it's important that you educate people as well.
Absolutely.
So they understand what the risks are and the consequences before taking such action. So that was really compelling to me.
Oh, yeah, a great organization, MAD. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll be talking to motivational speaker who lost his ability to walk in an impaired driving accident. Stay tuned to This Week in Niagara on 90.1 FM, The Heat.
With the cold weather on its way, it's that time of year to restock on board games. Games A Lot in Seaway Mall has all of your gaming needs. With unique games for all ages, Games A Lot is the perfect stop for everyone in the family. From Settlers of Catan to Killer Bunnies and Marshmallow Guns, Games A Lot has it all. Located at 800 Niagara Street in Welland in Seaway Mall.
Have you checked your fluids lately? No, not your bodily fluids, the ones in your car, silly. Did you know that if you don't do proper regular checks, then you're potentially harming your car? Well, tomorrow at 10:27 a.m., join me, Emily Patterson, where I will inform you on the importance of proper fluid maintenance in your car. I will also have the view from a mechanic and some how-tos on how to do it yourself. So, tune in to 90.1 FM The Heat.
Hi, I'm Darren Alley, producer of today's episode of This Week in Niagara. Drinking and driving is one of, if not the biggest issue on the road today. Accidents from impaired driving claim so many lives worldwide, and it needs to stop. That was my aim when I chose the topic for my episode of This Week in Niagara. If this show can convince one person not to drink and drive, I'll have done what I set out to do. Going out for a few drinks can be really fun, but people need to understand their judgment is different when they've been drinking. While impaired because of alcohol consumption, people don't think straight. Their brain is not functioning the way it does when sober. Sometimes driving after drinking is just an instinct, an automatic impulse that people don't think twice about. This is why anyone going out for a few drinks needs to make sure they have a safe way home before they leave. Before I was even born, my father almost lost his life because of a driver who wasn't paying attention to the road. I've come to understand that I wouldn't be here had that happened, had he not recovered. It puts life into perspective when you think about it. We only have so much time on this earth as it is, so is it really worth it to potentially end your life, or someone else's, just because you want to drive home after drinking? I don't think so. Throughout the process of producing this show, I've learned a lot. I now know more about what is going on in the Niagara region to stop drinking and driving. I've also learned how to get involved with many organizations, such as Mothers Against Drunk Driving. But one of the most significant things I've come across is the pain people go through because of drinking and driving. Impaired driving accidents can result in the loss of friends, family, and other loved ones. Not only that, but the regret those who commit the crime go through is immense. These are things I didn't really understand on a personal level before this show, but now I get it. I've come to understand how drinking and driving can ruin lives, and I hope you have too. Now, I'm not saying not to drink or have a good time, but if you do, make sure you have a safe way to get home. Drinking and driving is simply not worth it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learn a thing or two. Let's send it back to your hosts, Eryk Trickett and Adam Seguin.
That was our producer, Darren Alley, who talked about drinking and driving, and each week we cover different topics. Some are a little bit more lighthearted. This one I find is very hard-hitting. We all have been affected by somebody who's either been a victim or has caused a drunk driving accident.
No, exactly. And even though this show is entertaining as well, it also provides a service, I think.
Yes. Welcome back to This Week in Niagara on 90.1 FM The Heat. Today we're talking about drinking and driving.
Our next guest is motivational speaker Kevin Brooks. Kevin lost his ability to walk in his early 20s because of a drinking and driving, and he doesn't want to see other people make the same mistake. Before we talk to him, let's send it over to Brad Best to learn a little bit more about Kevin.
Kevin Brooks lives with the consequences of drinking and driving every day. One night of partying led to the loss of his ability to walk. He was no longer able to enjoy his favorite pastimes such as skateboarding, snowboarding, hockey, and many more. Despite all this, he never let the car crash be the end for him. Instead, he saw it as a new beginning. Wheelchair-bound at age 21, Kevin turned to motivational speaking. He has traveled to schools across North America to tell students his story and to teach people the dangers of drinking and driving. He has also appeared on an episode of The Tire Show. Kevin's story has changed lives. Now, let's send it back to Eryk and Adam.
Thank you, Brad. We now have Kevin on the line. Kevin, can you tell us about what happened on the night of your accident?
I was in a car crash. I was 21, and it was pretty much a typical weekend night. My buddies and I were out partying, bouncing from party to party, and left the last party of the night. There's four of us, old hockey buddies. Two of the buddies called a taxi, hopped in, got home safe, and one of the buddies hopped in with me, and we were heading off to another party and missed a corner, left the road, and the car rolled repeatedly. And my buddy Brendan, who I've known since I was probably 4 years old, passed away in the crash. And I was left there hanging by the belt, clinging to life, and rushed to the hospital. Pretty much woke up weeks later, found out that my buddy died in a car crash in my car, and that I was paralyzed. So it was a life-changing event for sure.
Wow. How did it feel when you realized you lost your ability to walk?
It's hard to put into words. I mean, when you get news like that, I mean, pretty much denial to start off. But that's what I remember at first, really, just not wanting to believe it was real, but then trying to, move my legs, trying to, wiggle my toes, and then not going. And, you want it to be a nightmare, but you know it's not. And it was just, pretty much the worst thing imaginable. I mean, then finding out my buddy was dead was, even worse, you know? It was awful.
I can't even imagine what that would be like. Can you go into detail about what you went through in the hospital after the accident?
I was really banged up. The car rolled repeatedly. I collapsed lung, so I was on a breather. Had like tubes coming all over. I had like 10 different tubes coming out of me, 6 from my lung, coming my side, tube in each nostril, 1 pumping nutrients in. I got a stomach infection in the hospital, so 1 pumping stomach infection out. Had the catheter, like 2 blood transfusions. It seemed like never ending. I mean, and once I was in like an induced coma for 3 weeks, but once I came out, it was like x-rays and CAT scans and MRIs and just, I mean, surgery-wise, I didn't have any surgery. Like, I fractured a vertebrae in my neck, and it bruised my spinal cord. They didn't actually have to operate on that, but it seemed like every day, even regardless, without having an operation, there was always 20 things going on, Just never seemed dead.
Unbelievable. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with motivational speaker Kevin Brooks. Now, Kevin, why did you want to become a motivational speaker?
I mean, it was a life-changing event. There was no doubt about that, and I guess I've always been pretty, like, gnarly, hardcore dude, and I just thought maybe this would be a good perspective to go in and be able to talk to people about this, because, here I sit in a wheelchair, I've lost a buddy. I mean, the consequences are clearly visible, and I don't know, it just seemed like what I should do, and I just thought maybe kids would listen, and people were coming up to me anyways and saying, what happened, or how'd you end up in the chair, and I would tell a bit of the story, and I could just, like, see the impact it was having on those people. I thought, man, if I could do that on a larger scale, how cool would that be, like, if I could get that message out, and everything just seemed to fall into place, and I started talking in schools, and, I mean, here I'm now, it's like 12 years later, and I'm speaking to more schools than ever, all over the place, so I don't think it was something more like, things happen for a reason. I don't think so much that, but it just, the circumstance of what happened, it just seemed like something good had to come from this, and that seemed like what I should do,
So what advice would you give to people who consider drinking and driving to be an option?
I'd say that $20 or $30 or even $100 or whatever it might be to get yourself home safe in a cab, or that couch you can sleep on, or whatever it may be, that phone call you can make to a designated driver is the better choice, because for myself, I never pictured this happening, and it did, and it really can happen to you any time, and the best way to avoid ending up in a situation like this is just don't make that bad choice, so, I mean, do your thing, party hard, have fun, whatever, but be smart about it, because, once you make that choice, there's no turning back.
Thank you for joining us today, Kevin. And once again, that was motivational speaker Kevin Brooks. If you'd like to contact him, visit his website at kevinbrooks.ca. Now, his story is one that's extremely tragic, but he's a great person because he really makes the consequences of drinking and driving very real.
Yes, you can enforce people, you can educate people, but nothing paints a picture like first-hand experience. I wasn't there, but hearing him talk, I almost felt like, I was in his situation.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever had a small thought that maybe you can get away with drinking and driving, now you probably won't after hearing this amazing story.
No, exactly. And a great guest to have on this show. And we've talked to a lot of guests today that provide different services to the community.
And just in case you missed something, here's Charlie Weber to recap today's show.
If you're interested in getting involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the Niagara region, you can contact Steve Way at sway@allstate.ca. You can also contact his wife, Nicole, at nmadden@allstate.ca. If you're going out for a few drinks and need a way to get both yourself and your car home, call We Drive at 905-932-5539. And for more information about their service, visit WeDriveOnline.com. To get in contact with Kevin Brooks about his motivational speaking or to book an event, email him at kevinbrooks@shaw.ca. Now let's send it back to Eryk and Adam.
Thank you, Charlie. Now, Adam, we've gone over a lot today, and what have you learned about drinking and driving?
I learned exactly how prominent this problem is in the region. We knew it was a problem. It's a problem everywhere, but I wasn't sure how big of a problem it was here and how many people can be affected. And it seems like a lot more people are being affected than what I first thought.
Exactly, and the numbers really showed that. And I was really interested in the WeDrive, in that business, and how they actually drive your car home for you after you've been out having a good time. And I think that's a great service, and I didn't know about it. So.
Yeah, one thing you should take away from the show is you always have options. That's important for me to stress. You always have options besides driving yourself home if you've had a couple of drinks. So it's definitely worth taking those options and not causing potential accidents. Now, This Week in Niagara returns this Friday, and Vanessa Torres is here to tell you all about it.
A big event on ice has come to the Niagara region, and it's not hockey. Friday, December 7th edition of This Week in Niagara will focus on Red Bull Crashed Ice. The event was a huge success, and producer Nicolo Cardarelli says it does a lot for the Niagara region.
This was an absolutely amazing spectacle of sport, and it really was an incredible event for Niagara. So we're going to be looking at the economic impact it had here in the region, and we'll be looking at the future of Red Bull Crashed Ice in Niagara Falls.
To learn more about Red Bull Crashed Ice and what it means for the Niagara region, make sure you tune into This Week in Niagara on Friday, December 7th at noon.
Thanks, Vanessa. That sounds like an awesome show, and that's all the time we have for today's edition of This Week in Niagara.
Thank you to everyone who appeared on the show today, and we hope absolutely everybody learned a thing or two about drinking and driving.
I know that I definitely did. I'm Eryk Trickett.
And I'm Adam Seguin. Thank you for listening to This Week in Niagara on 90.1 FM The Heat, Niagara's new rock.